Welcome to the Minimalist Podcast, where we discuss what it means to live a meaningful life with less. My name is Joshua Fields Milburn. Ryan Nicodemus will be joining us here in a little bit during the lightning round. But in the meantime, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, TK Coleman.
What is going on, my friends?
Alabama's here.
Hi, everybody.
We've got the rest of our team here in the studio as well. Coming up today on this free public minimal episode, a caller has a question about social media clutter. Then we've got our lightning round segment, a live stream question for you, and a listener tip. You can check out the full 2-hour maximal edition of episode 402, where we answer 5 times the questions and we dive deep into several simple living segments. That private podcast episode is out right now at patreon.com/theminimalists. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free, because sing along at home, folks. Advertisements suck. Yes, they do. Let's start with our callers. If you have a question or comment for our show, please give us a call, 406-219-7839, or email a voice recording to podcast@theminimalists.com. Our first question today is from Micklina.
Hello there, Minimalists. My name is Micklina, and I am 21 years old. I'm from New Jersey. And I also just wanted to add that I am a Patreon subscriber. I am an entrepreneur. I own 3 businesses, and as a minimalist, I know that it may seem like a lot, but believe it or not, they are symbiotic relationships with one another. And I get a very large sense of clutter from social media. It does not add value to my life. Social media is a distraction. And quite frankly, I feel as if it is a narcissistic's playground and a petri dish for comparison and coming from a place of lack instead of a place of abundance. And as a business owner, I feel like if it's not on social media, it doesn't exist. So I have these 2 very polar opposite positions regarding social media. And I feel like I get overwhelmed with the amount of content that I should be putting out. And I refrain from putting anything out because I don't want to, add to the void. I don't want to be a contributor to an invaluable content situation. So my question is, what do you guys do as the minimalists to maintain a healthy relationship with social media?
TK, I thought it'd be fascinating here to make a few distinctions. First off, I think Micklina's onto something. She's spot on. Like anything useful, social media becomes clutter whenever it's a distraction.
Yeah.
And for her right now, it seems like it is clutter because it is a distraction. In fact, she said, it does not add value to my life and to my 3 businesses, which, by the way, I own 4 businesses. It's okay to be a minimalist and have multiple businesses. Sometimes you just do that for accounting purposes. Other times it's like, well, I have several different ways that I earn a living, or I have several different things that I'm passionate about, and that's totally fine. When you hear her question, though, I can hear a lot of tension, a lot of discontent. She's upset about social media. She feels like I have to do it, but she doesn't want to do it. And I was thinking, some of the most successful businesses in the world don't really use social media.
Yeah.
My computer's made by Apple, and I was just on their Twitter account this morning, and I went to their Facebook account. You know, they have 0 posts on Twitter.
Is that right?
They have millions of followers, but 0 posts.
That's so awesome.
And the same is true with their Facebook. I went to their Facebook page, facebook.com/Apple, and 0 posts. They do use Instagram, but it's just to post people's pictures. And so it's a beautiful representation of what one of their products does. And so it is possible to use social media or to not use social media as a business. What are your initial thoughts, TK?
Yeah, it sounds like she might be living in a world like many of us of pics or it didn't happen. I don't want to be on it. It's not necessary for my business, but pics or it didn't happen. How are people going to know that my business is doing well if I don't show them on social media? How are people going to know that I'm not happy or that I am happy if I don't post it on social media? And so sometimes we have to opt out of the story that says this is necessary just because everyone else is doing it. You know, it'd be one thing if your customers need to see you on social media and you're making yourself get on it begrudgingly. In that case, it'd be a simple solution like, all right, hire someone else who loves doing that to play the role of giving your customers what they need on social media. But if your customers don't need it and you don't need it, who's to say that it didn't happen or it's not real if you're not on there?
Here's the irony of the Minimalists. We hired someone a long time ago, Jessica, Social Jess, to run our social media. And after she had a kid, she was on maternity leave, she came back and said, hey, I realized this isn't for me anymore. And now Professor Sean is handling our social media postings. Yeah. Now, Professor Sean does not have any social media accounts of his own. And yet, as a business, we use social media as a distribution outlet. We take up little clips from this podcast. Danny cuts them up, makes them into TikToks and Instagram Reels. We put them on Twitter and Facebook. I do agree with her sentiment, though. I don't want to add to, she said the void, but really she doesn't want to add to the noise. She doesn't want to be the person who's like, it's really noisy out there. You know what I'm going to do? I'm also going to start screaming into the void, which is already filled with noise. And what I've realized, though, is something that we do really well is we whisper into the noise. And there are a few people who get really close and I want that. I want to hear more of that. And you can ask Sean, you can ask Danny, whenever we are putting a clip out there, I don't care about the number of views. I'm always asking one question: how many people are sharing this? Because if someone's getting value from it, they don't just watch it, they share it with someone they love. Adding value is a basic human instinct. If a clip really resonates with me, I'm going to send it to Mallory, I'm going to send it to TK, I'm going to send it to Jordan because, I think they'll laugh at this, or I think it's educational or informational. I think they will find some value in it the same way that I found value in it.
Yeah, that's so good. You know, it reminds me of hearing people say, we don't need another podcast. We don't need another book on that topic. We don't need another blog. And there's this idea that anytime you step up and use your voice or creatively express yourself, you're adding to the noise. But here's the thing. When you refuse to do something just because everyone else is doing it, you're being as much of a conformist as someone who chooses to do something just because everyone else is doing it. Because in both cases, you're orienting your life around nothing more than reacting to what other people do, right? So what makes you creative, what makes you a true nonconformist is you say, I am willing to do what brings me joy, whether everyone else is doing it or no one else is doing it. I'm doing it because it's the real me who shows up and does it. And so if you get joy from social media or from doing something, doesn't matter that it's a fad. Do it because it's true to you. And if you don't, you can opt out.
Absolutely. And here's the fascinating thing. You're already opting out of a lot of social media platforms. TK, did you know there are 128 popular social media platforms?
Wait, 128?
128. I have a list of the 21 top social media sites to consider for your business in 2023. This is an article from Buffer. We'll put a link to this in the show notes. But Michelina, you've already opted out of most of these. Are you already on WeChat? Are you on QQ, which has more than 500 million active monthly users? I don't even know what QQ is. I'm not on it. Are you on Telegram? Are you on QZone, which also has 553.5 million monthly active users? That's more than Pinterest. That's more than Twitter. Are you on Discord? Are you on Twitch? Are you on Tumblr? Are you on Mastodon? Are you on OnlyFans, which is a social media network as well? We opt out of these things all the time. And the question isn't, should I opt out of all social media? Which social media is going to add any value to my business? Here's the question I'm constantly asking myself. If we send a tweet, if we put up an Instagram post or a TikTok video or a YouTube video, does this add value? Will this add value to an audience? That's the only way I know I'm not adding to the noise. And are you able to use these platforms to add value? I'm not saying you should use it, but I'm also not saying you shouldn't use these platforms. Yep. I'd love to give you a definitive answer where it says, well, here are the 3 that you should use. Here's how frequently you should use them. But that might just be clutter for you. I think it's totally fine to be like Apple and post absolutely nothing and still have a successful business without it. They show that you don't have to have social media. The last question I'm going to ask myself here is, who am I doing this for? Who did I build this business for? And does social media help me connect with those people? If so, wonderful. If it doesn't help me connect with those people, then it's a distraction. And if it is a distraction, then it's clutter.
That's right, man. And sometimes it's hard to do certain things like get on social media because you might see other people doing things that seem vain to you and you're afraid of looking like them. But if you need to be on there, you can do the same what for a different why. Some people do things intentionally. Some people do it compulsively. Some people do it because they want to be seen and heard. Some people do it because there's something that they want to solve. You know what I mean? And so it all just comes down to finding your own reasons for doing things. And when you figure out what works for you, don't get sidelined by debates about what everyone else ought to do. Just let other people do them and you do you.
And the truth is, it might change over time. The way I use social media today in 2023 is considerably different from how I used social media in 2008, which is when I signed up for Twitter. I barely use Twitter at all anymore, especially over the last year or so. I just haven't liked the changes that they've made to the platform. Not a political stance. I just literally don't like the way the platform is set up now. It's too reminiscent of Facebook, which I've never really enjoyed much of either. I really used to enjoy Twitter. If you stop enjoying something but still continue to use it, it means it did add value, but now I'm clinging to something that is no longer adding value. And so I'm constantly reevaluating. Yes, we use social media. We have several million followers for the Minimalists social media accounts on TikTok and Instagram and all of these other places. But from a personal perspective, I don't use social media that much. And so from a practical side of things, I got something from our friend Seth Godin. He talked about how if social media is a distraction, this is one of those cases where it actually makes sense to have a separate device for your social media use. Having a tablet or a separate phone or whatever it might be just for posting on social media. And that way you can schedule those times out and know exactly, okay, whenever I'm on this device, that's my social media time. But removing the apps from the phone, I mean, that's been the biggest thing that's helped me is removing the social media apps from my phone. Danny did this recently with his own Instagram. And now if he wants to post something, he has to re-add the app. It creates a little bit of friction. Now, if you're posting every day, that might become a problem and you need a separate device for that. But adding a little bit of friction into the process makes you realize whether or not this is adding value.
Yeah. And you might want to add to that a little 0 dark 30, where you say for 30 days, I'm going dark on social media, 0 posts, and see how it feels. Does everything in your life go to hell? Or do you say, that felt good? You'll know.
That happened with our YouTube channel recently. So in June, we put up no videos in June because we were republishing our documentary, Minimalism, our first documentary. And so we said, I just want to clear the runway for this film. But we had more views in June than we had the previous 6 months with no other videos posted. And so you realize like, oh, I don't have to play this game. The content over everything. Post. I need to remain relevant. Well, no, the best way to be relevant is to add value to your customers, listeners, readers, whatever they might be. One last thing I have for you here, TK, is this article from Forbes, 21 ways to grow your business without social media. We'll put a link to this in the show notes over at theminimalists.com. I'm just going to run through a few of these and you can comment if you'd like. Number 1 is go networking. Actually meeting people face to face. That's the original social media. It's social without the media. Create collaboration. So collaborating, say you're a musician or you're a business, like we've done this with our coffee shop down in St. Petersburg, Florida, where we'll have other businesses that make food come in and collaborate on some food for the day. Here are some other things. Start a newsletter. That's a nice thing about having your own website. So you can see how we start our website, theminimalists.com/blog. It's called How to Start a Successful Blog Today. And I think this applies to any business. I think it's really important because you then own that asset.
Yeah.
Here's the truth. If Instagram decides to make some infuriating change like they did to us yesterday, they deleted 9 of our videos yesterday, or they didn't really delete the whole video. They deleted the audio from the videos because we were using songs from their selected playlist, from their music library on Instagram. And they decided, oh, you can't have these songs anymore. Not only are we going to remove the song from your video, we're going to remove you talking from the video. And that created a significant headache. So social media can certainly cause a headache as well. But you know what didn't happen? No one went to our website and said, you can't have these words on the website. And so owning your own newsletter, owning your own blog, owning your own IP, your own platform is ultimately what I always want to have as the foundation. These other things for me, I don't create for Instagram. I don't create for TikTok. I use those platforms to further distribute what we are creating here at The Minimalists.
That's right. And that's very entrepreneurial, that approach. I'll just close by saying, look, obligations are relative. You only have to do something if you've committed yourself to a certain result or outcome. But if you can find a way to eliminate the need for that or live without it, then you've also eliminated the obligation. So what do you want to be on social media for? For some people, it's about being famous. For some people, it's about being profitable. For some people, it's about finding their tribe. And do you know all of those things can come apart? There are people that are social media famous that aren't making any money. There are people that are making a lot of money that aren't in social media famous. And there are people that have found their tribe and connecting with people, and they're neither famous nor rich, and they don't care, So play by the rules according to the game that's fun to you.
I love that. What are you trying to accomplish? What is your outcome here? You don't have to be on social media just because everyone else is on social media. Yeah. You also don't have to shun social media because that is the cool thing to do as well. However, understand that it is possible. Last thing I have here is from InStyle. It's 21 celebrities who don't use social media. You have Keira Knightley, Rachel McAdams, Emily Blunt, Emma Stone, Kate Winslet, Julia Roberts, Kate Moss, Chris Pine, and of course, Professor Sean Mihalik. He's a talented novelist. He's written and published 8 books, I believe, and he does not have any social media presence at all. So it is possible to do it either way. Am I adding value with my social media? That's always the question that I'm asking. Malabama, what time is it?
You know what time it is. It's time for the lightning round where we answer your questions from TikTok.
Yes, indeed. You can follow The Minimalists on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Minimalist. Now, during the lightning round, we each have 60 seconds to answer your question with a short, shareable, less than 140-character response. We put the text to these minimal maxims in the show notes over at theminimalists.com so you can copy and share our pithy answers on social media if you'd like. Today's question is from Missy.
My mom is personally offended that I don't want to inherit everything she owns. I can't function with clutter, and I don't even know where I'd put it all. How can I avoid this burden?
Well, joining us in the studio and on the phone. Go to the wide shot, Danny.
Too good.
I can only imagine how handsome that cardboard cutout is.
It's my good friend Ryan Nicodemus. Hello, best friend.
What's up, best friend?
Hello, Nicodemus.
What's up, TK? What's up? What's up, team?
Let's talk to Missy here. Ryan is actually moving this week, and so we got him on the phone. When he joins us in the future, he'll have a pristine microphone. Everything will sound great, but we just wanted to get him on the phone today to help tackle Missy's question. And so, Ryan, I love what you sent me last night. You sent something pithy. What do you got for us?
To be understood requires understanding. So, Missy, what's going on here is your mom, she's battling with something. And I don't know what that is exactly, but I know that it's much deeper than the stuff. And to really understand where she's coming from, you got to listen. And you have to listen with an open heart. And that takes a lot of attention, and it takes a lot of maybe even holding back some of the things you want to say. But I do promise you, Missy, if you go out of your way to understand your mother and her preferences, she might just start to go out of her way to understand what your desires are and what your preferences are. So try to understand your mother, and maybe she'll understand you.
Ryan, on the private podcast, we were just talking a moment ago about, we didn't even use the acronym, but we were talking about tolerance versus acceptance and respect and appreciation. And it sounds to me like what you're talking about here is trying to understand the mother's point of view, which that helps us with compassion. By the way, if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, the reason everyone's laughing is because there's a cardboard cutout of Ryan in our studio. It's hard for me to take him entirely seriously when he's talking because there's just this cardboard cutout.
We're just short a dimension.
I think I might use a photo of you in the future or just get you up on FaceTime. TK, you got anything pithy for us?
Let's do it, man. Arguments about stuff are really arguments about stories. The reason you leave your clothes lying around on the floor is because you don't think about anybody but yourself. The reason you won't let me store my things in your garage is because you are insensitive to my needs. The reason you don't want to inherit my property is because you don't care about my legacy. Stuff is at the center, but it's always the story we're telling ourselves that make the stuff matter. So if you're having conflict with people that you love about stuff, back up and connect with them over the story. Express curiosity about the story. And what this will do is it will either give you new options for how you can fulfill the goal of the story, or it can give you a way of dealing with the stuff that you previously didn't imagine. And you get to be closer to them. I think about Harry Potter, where Harry says to Dumbledore, "Is this real or is it just in my head?" And Dumbledore says, "It's just in your head, but why would you think that makes it any less real?" Yes, our stories are in our head, they're in our hearts, but our stories are real, they matter, and you'll never connect with the person or solve a problem with them if you don't learn how to be curious about the story they're telling themselves.
And what you and Ryan are connecting here, at least what I'm connecting from the two of you, is there's something here about changing your story, but one of the best ways to change your story about someone else is to better understand where they're coming from.
That's right.
I got something pithy for you, Ryan, and you and I have talked about this quite a bit. You picked up every boulder you're carrying. And so there's something that's weighing you down right now. And there are going to be more things that are going to weigh you down. There's going to be a family member who tries to hold you. There's going to be a family member who tries to hand you one of their boulders and say, "Here, you hold this for me." And it's okay. You can pick that up if you want. But you don't have to hold on to their burdens. Their burdens don't need to become your burden. If someone is offended, Missy, because you're wearing a blue shirt, it is not your job to go out and buy a red shirt just to appease them. Because if you do that for one person, you're going to have to appease everyone. You're going to make someone upset. You're going to offend someone. If I was offended because Ryan's favorite color is green, I can't believe you. How dare you? Your favorite color is green. Well, that's my problem. It's not Ryan's problem.
So true, man. It's interesting how other people thrust their problems upon us, and we feel like we have to take them. But what you're highlighting here is we absolutely do not have to pick up other people's problems.
And every time I do pick up someone's problem, I get this sense of self-righteousness, right? Oh, look what I can bear. Look what I can carry. Look how much I can handle. I must be a great human being. But the truth is, I don't have to pick it up. Missy, your mom is personally offended that you don't want to inherit everything that she owns. It doesn't mean that she's wrong to want to give those things to you. It doesn't mean she's wrong for finding value in those things. But if you don't find value from it, you don't have to pick up those boulders and carry them forward.
And one of the ways we pick up boulders is someone says, "You don't love me." Well, yes, I do. Well, you just picked up that boulder, right? When they say you don't love me, you can say, why do you feel that way?
Oof.
That's not how I want to make you feel. Why do you feel that way? Now you're not picking up the boulder. You're not taking that story and combating with them over it. You're disarming them with curiosity.
Yeah, I saw this video the other day about it was like one of the older mystics. I can't remember their name, but the video was a man quoting him, and the mystic was talking about how when two hearts are very far apart, they tend to get louder with one another when they speak. They get in arguments more. They are in the same room, but there's this tension building that creates a really uncomfortable conversation. And the reason being is because even though these two hearts are in the same room, they don't feel like they're being heard. So they feel like they have to talk extra loud. But the obverse is also true. When two hearts are close, you really don't have to talk that loud. In fact, I think about Mariah and I being in the same room, and she can just give me a look, and I know exactly what she's thinking. So, Missy, I would encourage you to try to get your heart as close to your mother's heart as possible.
And one of the ways you do that is exactly what TK was talking about, getting curious, asking questions instead of hurling accusations or being self-righteous or even making definitive statements in these instances is not necessarily helpful. But you can ask a question instead of saying, I'm not going to get any value from that. Don't try to give it to me. Is, well, why do you think I would get value from that? What do you think I would enjoy about that? And it opens up the conversation in a way that is not judgmental. It's simply curious. Ryan, we're going to let you get back to moving. Hopefully we can get you to call in next week. And we're going to say goodbye to your cardboard cutout as well.
Thanks for having me, guys. Love y'all.
Love you, brother.
Love you, brother.
All right.
Bye.
All right, let's check in with the Patreon live stream in a moment. But first, real quick for right here, right now, here's one thing that's going on in the life of the minimalist. Did you know that we have a newsletter? It's called The Simple Newsletter, and it's free. You can subscribe like hundreds of thousands of other people subscribe. Just go to www.theminimalists.email. And it'll take you right to our website. You can subscribe in there. We send you the podcast show notes delivered straight to your inbox every Monday. You get free videos and essays from The Minimalist, a bunch of free resources, free simple wallpapers for your phone or for your desktop computer. Free ebooks, including, we got some free ebooks out there right now, but there's a new one that TK has been working on called Emotional Clutter. A free ebook from TK Coleman. It's coming very soon, and you'll be the first to know if you sign up for our email list over at theminimalists.email. You know what else we won't send you? Spam, junk, or advertisements ever, because advertisements suck. We're going to check in with our Patreon live stream. We switched this up recently. We're doing a monthly Zoom call with our patrons. We just did our first one, and our second one's coming up really soon. Ryan was there, TK was there, Alabama was there, and each month we're doing a Zoom call. Now, what we're doing is we'll talk a little bit with each other, but then we'll bring you on camera if you're interested in asking a question or having a discussion with us. Or let's say you're an introvert, you just want to be a fly on the wall. You can totally do that as well. You can turn off your camera and just be the voyeur who watches the Zoom call. And if you are a Patreon subscriber, you are welcome. If you subscribe to the video version of the private podcast every month, and sometimes even more than once a month, we're going to hop on there, but it's the first Friday of every month where we're going to interact with you on Zoom.
Oh man, it felt so festive, to be able to do that, to be able to see the real-time interaction. Someone's asking something and you're able to ask them a clarification question, or someone else is sharing a similar experience they've had in the chat. And there's some conversation and back and forth going on in the chat. And some people are making book recommendations, movie recommendations, and we're all laughing out here and talking. It felt like a true community experience. And it's really awesome. And that was just the first one. I'm really looking to build on this, man.
We collected some questions that we weren't able to answer during the Zoom call itself. Alabama, you got one for us?
Yeah, I have one here from Nastasia. She says, I use social media as a tool for visual inspiration around various topics and to connect with the bulk of my friends who live far away from me. Social media makes me feel a shallow sense of connection, but being a remote worker and in a little bit of an isolated neighborhood, sometimes I find myself turning to it more frequently because I am a visual person. While I prefer in-person connection, I find myself hopping online to get that fix. How can I get more meaningful connections out of social media?
I love that you called social media a tool, because that's exactly what it is. Just like we had this mallet in here earlier, and we use that to fix things in the studio, or I could use it to just bonk TK on the head and hurt him, right? And how am I using social media? I'm using it as a tool. And I agree that it often creates shallow connections. When we were addressing the question earlier about social media clutter, one of the things that I failed to say is I've gotten tremendous benefit from social media. So I don't think it's all good or all bad, just like I don't think that mallet is all good or bad. I can use a knife to cut through a mango, or I can use it to stab someone. What am I doing with that? I could take a paint can and beautify my home, or I could graffiti a local park. What am I using that tool for? And this tool of social media has allowed me to connect with people, TK is how we originally connected was connecting via social media. And so I've connected with business partners. My friend TK, or my friend Colin Wright, we started a business with him back in 2012 called Asymmetrical Press. If it weren't for social media, I would have never connected with him. The people who I first discovered minimalism through was because of social media. It was wonderful, but it was simply the on-ramp. I didn't mistake the on-ramp as the destination. It was an on-ramp to a deeper relationship. I've met friends, I've met lovers, I've met business partners, I've met employees, I've met collaborators, all because of social media as an on-ramp to a deeper relationship, and also as a way to stay connected with people periodically, to see what they're up to without it cluttering my life. No, I don't need to see every single social media post from every single one of my friends, but I am able to check in with them from time to time. And social media is a tool to do that.
Absolutely. And one thing that social media can be very useful for is creating accountability for the things that you find to be life-giving. So one example is this emotional clutter announcement you just made. I made an agreement with Josh that I would submit a rough draft by this time. And I asked him, if I don't submit the rough draft, make fun of me on the podcast. And I know he's good enough of a friend to make good on that agreement. But we were able to have a positive announcement as a result of it. When I wanted to do a 365-day blogging challenge, I went on social media and I says, hey, everybody, I'm going to try something new. I'm going to write a blog post every single day for a year, even if I'm not completely happy with my writing. People got really excited for me, but it gave me a little boost of accountability. So one thing you could do is you could say, hey, I have a goal of going to a live event or a meetup once every week or once every other week or once every month. And after I do it, I'm going to do a little write-up on social media where I show you a picture of it and I do a little tweet thread on what I liked about the event, something along those lines.
And what you're talking about there is using social media as an augmentation for your real life, not replacing real life with the tool itself. Just because I wear a really nice tool belt, that doesn't make me a carpenter, right? However, if I'm a carpenter, I probably need a tool belt. I certainly need some tools in order to do my job. So the question that I first asked myself, we were talking about this earlier, does this add value and can I add value with it? And if the answer is yes, then I ask myself another question. Is this the best use of this time? Because yes, it might add some value, but just because it adds some value, and our good friend Cal Newport talks about this in his book, Digital Minimalism, which we'll put a link to that book in the show notes. And we had him on the podcast to talk about that as well. So actually, Professor Sean, if you could put a link to that episode where we did a whole episode with Cal Newport about digital minimalism, and he doesn't use social media at all. And that is his choice because he says, yes, I think I can get some value from it, but personally for him, it gets in the way. And as soon as it gets in the way, it's clutter. How can I use social media as a tool that doesn't get in the way? And if the answer is I can't, then yes, it makes sense for me to let go of all social media. But if I can use social media as a tool, wonderful. If it enhances my life in some way, if it augments my experience or amplifies my life in a way that is value adding to me and continues to add value, because we got to think about that as well. Just because I got value from Twitter in 2008 doesn't mean I'm going to get the same value today. So I don't use social media personally very often. But for a business, we use it every single day through the Minimalists. The way that we've used it through the Minimalists has changed as well, because social media, once upon a time, was just text and maybe a picture here and there. And now it's all video and it's captions, and we're much more selective about what we put out there because I too don't want to add to the noise, but I do want to use it to connect.
It's interesting too, because this question is coming from someone who not only receives inspiration from other people's postings, but who gives inspiration and has a track record for that. We all have interesting, beautiful looking sketches of us that she created and posted on social media, adding value to other people's lives. It's like, how else can that be emulated or applied to other things that you enjoy doing, other people you meet, other places that you visit? How can you combine that world of art, real world experience, so that you can come back to social media and say, here's something cool I discovered this week?
Hey, Nas, thanks for your question. Malabama, we'll check back in with that Patreon live stream, that Zoom call. I know we got some more questions from that as well. But in the meantime, what else you got for us?
Here's a minimalist insight from one of our listeners.
Hi, my name is Paloma, calling from New York. This is regarding a listener tip for the episode you did with Kristen Ziegler regarding a question from Trinity and how she can keep things uncluttered while decorating and making an impact with her own style. I do organization and a little bit of home styling for people. And one of my recommendations is keep the purchases you make or the things that you choose to have in your home to be large in scale, as in a large mirror that is useful, very long, maybe luxurious curtains, because those are also useful. And these sort of plants that you have, keep them large in scale, because little trinkets and little tidbits that you think might add style feel cluttered after a while. So when you're considering pieces, always consider things that are larger in scale and take up more of a wall area and make a bigger impact. So one large painting to show your style versus several little ones. That's it. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right, y'all. We'll see you on Patreon for the full 2-hour maximal edition of episode 402, which includes answers to a bunch more questions like, why do we need to avoid toxic positivity? What's the idea of post-luxury? And why are luxury goods a scam? What should I do with old concert tickets, memorabilia, and autographed items? How can you thrive as the sole minimalist in a family that believes in maximalist principles? And a bunch more questions. Also this week, a private minimalist home tour from one of our team members. Jordan No More is a minimalist with a maximal love for color and miscellaneous eccentricities. We're going to look at his home, 16 different pictures from his home this week, plus much, much more of less. And if you want to hear all that, check out the Minimalist Private Podcast at patreon.com/theminimalist, or click the link in the description to subscribe and get your personal link so that our weekly maximal episodes play in your favorite podcast app. You'll also gain access to all of our podcast archives, all the way back to episode 001. And if you're still on the fence, Patreon is now offering free trials. So if you'd like to test drive our private podcast, you can join for 7 days for free. Now is the time for less. That is our minimal episode for today. If you leave here today with just one message, please let it be this: love people and use things, because the opposite never works. Thanks for listening, y'all.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Every little thing you think that you need, every little thing you think that you need, every little thing that's just feeding your greed. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it.